Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 273 is a little over a week away, and on the prelims, we have a welterweight matchup between Garry and Darian Weeks, and this is going to be my full breakdown and prediction for this welterweight fight. I'll be doing a bunch of UFC 273 prediction videos. I mean, UFC 273 is just stacked from top to bottom. Volkanovski defending the featherweight title against Korean Zombie. You have Petr Yan versus Aljamain Sterling 2. Gilbert Burns, Khamzat Chimaev. Mackenzie Dern versus Tisa Torres. We have so many great fights on UFC 273. I'll be doing a bunch of prediction videos, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. But this video is going to be for Garry versus Darian Weeks. So if you look at the tail of the tape of this fight, you have Garry, who's 24, Darian Weeks, who's 28. Garry is 6'3", Weeks is 5'11". Garry has a 74-inch reach. Weeks has a 72-inch reach. So if you look at both guys, I mean, they're in very similar situations. They only have one fight in the UFC. In Darian Weeks' entire MMA career, he's just 5-1. So it used to be back in the day, the barrier to entry in the UFC was a lot more steep. Guys that were 5-1 weren't really getting into the UFC. But nowadays, this is the kind of stuff we see. And if you look at his first fight in the UFC, it was back in December of last year against Bryan Barberena, which isn't a, easy opponent by any means. He lost this fight via decision. He pretty much got outstruck for the majority of the fight. Bryan Barberena was landing some vicious inside leg kicks. He had some success. I think it was in the second round where he was able to take Barberena down, control him a little bit, and eke out that round kind of. But for the majority of the fight, he was losing it. He was kind of wading forward, throwing one or two shots, then looking for a takedown. He wasn't really able to control Bryan Barberena in the first or third round. He would get him down, but Barberena would pop right back up. But that's still a tough test in Bryan Barberena for at least, for your UFC debut. You have Garry, and I actually went back and rewatched this fight very recently, and I was actually surprised because my recollection of it was far different from what actually happened in the fight. So I remembered basically Garry getting lit up for the first 4 minutes or so, losing the fight pretty badly, and then coming back with a nasty right-hand KO. And that's not really what happened. I mean, it's partially true, but for the most part, Garry was losing the fight, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was, when I watched it the first time. It was against Jordan Williams back at UFC 268. Don't get me wrong, he was eating shots. He was backing up with his chin in the air. But it wasn't as bad, as I thought it was. It was mildly competitive. Garry was landing some head kicks, but he faced the adversity. He ate some shots, and then eventually he lands that picture perfect. I believe it was a right hand right on the chin as he's backing away with his chin up in the air, just picture perfect, and finishes Jordan Williams. And, as much as I want to say, okay, this was a terrible performance, how much can you crap on a performance when you get a first-round KO? You know what I mean? And Jordan Williams, not the best level of competition, but still a decent fighter, I guess. And both these guys, I talk about it all the time with resumes. Neither one of these guys have really fought steep elite level competition, but I'm not really expecting them to have, one fight in the UFC, and especially, the way the UFC has kind of changed over the years where, some guys are basically growing within the UFC. Garry's only 24 years old at this point in time. He still has so many years. Most people think your prime in MMA starts around, 30, 32, somewhere around there. So really he has 6 years to develop and get better. And I think in this fight, the UFC gave him Darian Weeks to kind of get him a win. And I think he wins this fight. I'm going to go second round TKO Garry. Darian Weeks wants to come out and wrestle, but he's not like an elite level grappler wrestler guy. I mean, he can get you down, but his hands leave a lot to be desired. Honestly, I don't think Darian Weeks belongs in the UFC. Maybe he'll prove me wrong. I don't think Garry's that good, but he has a decent base, it seems, where he can evolve and get better. And, if he can, address some of his striking defense deficiencies, I think he can get better. He has good striking. He has powerful kicks, powerful punches. He gets in and out very well. And I think Darian Weeks, he just kind of wants to press forward, throw a couple wild shots, and then look for a takedown, look for a body lock, look for a trip. And then even when he does, he really can't control guys at an elite level that you're going to need to be able to be successful in the UFC. Ian Garry showed some decent takedown defense against Jordan Williams in his last fight. Not that Darian Weeks and Jordan Williams are, the same level wrestlers, but I really think, in Ian Garry's fight against Jordan Williams was landing a lot of shots because he was throwing 3, 4, 5 punch combinations. That's eventually what led to him getting KO'd as well. But Darian Weeks is not a guy that's going to do that. He throws 2 shots to set up a double leg takedown. Ian Garry, without a doubt, knows that's what he's going to try to do, is take him down and hold him down. And he's just not going to allow him to do it. I think he's going to be more tentative in the first round. And I think as the fight goes on, he's going to get Darian Weeks timing a bit. And I think eventually it's going to be a similar situation to the Jordan Williams fight where Ian Garry's backing up, probably has his chin in the air. I hope he's addressed that at least slightly. And I think he's going to clip Darian Weeks, put him down, finish him off with ground and pound, and win the fight. Darian Weeks' hands look awful. He has some decent kicks. He used a lot of kicks in his UFC debut against Bryan Barberena. Deep kicks to the body, but I just think the height advantage, the reach advantage, even though it's not huge, I think it obviously plays into a factor with this fight with Ian Garry, the superior striker. I think he has better kicks. I think he has more power. Darian Weeks showed that he has decent stamina in the Bryan Barberena fight, and I still worry about Ian Garry's stamina, but I just think he gets it done in the second round. I think Darian Weeks does not close the distance well enough. He gets clipped with shots. And Bryan Barberena, while he has some decent striking, I think Ian Garry has more power than Bryan Barberena. We just saw Bryan Barberena fight Matt Brown in that crazy wild fight last weekend. But Bryan Barberena just doesn't have that one-shot KO power. I think Ian Garry has it. Maybe I'm wrong. But I just think as Darian Weeks is looking to spam for that takedown, I think Gary's going to be a little bit tentative early in the first round just because he's going to be worried about the takedown. And I think eventually the shots will come in the second round. Darian Weeks will get a little bit more desperate looking for that takedown, and Ian Garry's going to crack him, knock him down, finish him with ground and pound, and win the fight. And Ian Garry, has a lot of hype behind him. I guess just because he's from Ireland, he's comparing himself to Conor McGregor. He's got a lot of hype behind him. I think it remains to be seen how good he is. I think he has a lot of improving and evolving and learning to do. But if he gets a win over Darian Weeks, I guess, a couple more fights, and then maybe we can see him tested against a little bit better competition. Right now, I don't even want to think about him in the terms of the actual welterweight division, what some of those guys would do to him. Shavkat Rakhmonov, Khamzat Chimaev, Gilbert Burns, Colby Covington, Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman. I don't even want to think about him in the terms of fighting any of those elite level competition in the welterweight division. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think is going to win? Ian Garry, Darian Weeks? I'm curious what you think. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.